Hi everybody! Today we're going to be working in this Colouring Heaven Pocket Edition. This is the Fantasy Animals edition by Hanna Karlzon, and this one is smaller than the normal issues of Colouring Heaven. It's maybe a little bit smaller than a normal Hanna Karlzon book. So hopefully this will be quite a quick colouring today. And I have decided to work in mainly markers for this picture as I am working towards a couple of hashtags today. My theme for the month of July will be to find as many and complete as many colouring hashtags as I can find for the month. So the two I'm going to be working towards today are the Colour Your Hoard hashtag, which is run by Lovella's Colouring and T's World of Adult Colouring. I will link all these hashtags and channels below. Colour Your Hoard, because this will be the first picture I am colouring in this issue. And also I'm going to be working towards Amanda Colour's Colour Palette Challenge for the month, which is AC Palette Challenge. Again, I will link that below, which is a lovely peach and teal colour palette, quite a fantasy colour palette, which I thought would be quite interesting to work with for today's picture. And today's picture will also be a buddy colour with my lovely friend Emma Harvey from Instagram, and we've both picked out this picture from this issue here today to be colouring. I'll just show you which one we will be working on. It will be this little kitty cat here, and I thought it might be really fun to work with him along with that kind of peach and teal colour palette, which is quite a fantasy sort of colour palette. So I'm going to turn him, hopefully, into a little fairy cat. If I can pull off the idea I do have in my head, then yeah, I think this will work out really well to be using this limited palette, which I will show you in a second when we zoom in. So let's get started. So here we are zoomed in, and I thought before we actually start I would show you the colour palette that we will be working with today. I have been through my Ohuhu markers and I've picked out the 4 markers that I think will fit this colour palette the best, and I'm going to try and stick with just using those markers as much as possible. I may need to bring in a little bit of pencil shading in kind of shades that would work for shading or highlighting. I will probably bring in my white gel pen as well, but this is the colour palette that we are going to be working with. I'll just bring in the scrap paper. These are the 2 hashtags we are going to be working towards. And for Amanda Colour's Colour Palette Challenge, these are the colours that I could find that were closest to the colour palette that she had picked out. First of all, we have a peachy colour, and I'm thinking this one here would probably fit in quite well to be a kind of apricot peach colour for that colour palette. We have white in the colour palette as well, so bringing in the white gel pen, that is perfectly allowable. We do have white in the colour palette. And then we have 3 shades of kind of blue and teal. That first colour there is called R050 Chocolate Pink from the Ohuhu markers, if anyone is wanting to colour along. For the lightest kind of teal, I have G322, which is Pale Aqua Mint. That is, we've gone with the fine point there, but that is the Pale Aqua Mint. Slightly less green than the colour that is in the colour palette, but these are the nearest I could find. For the kind of medium tone, I have a G324, which is Aqua Blue. Slightly darker than our light tone there. And for the darkest tone, which is quite a dark teal blue, I've picked out the darkest teal blue I could find. This is G500, which is Peacock Blue. There we go, and I think those work quite well as 3 shades of teal there, along with our peach colour. And we do have white in that colour palette as well. So those are the colours we're going to be working with on our little kitty cat today. I'm really excited, quite hopeful I can make this work. So let's just clear away that little colour palette. First of all, I'm going to go in with the peach colour, which is R050 Chocolate Pink. And I'm thinking the inside of his ears would probably be the peach. And I was thinking maybe to make him kind of along the lines of a Siamese cat, but using the teal colours, the blues and the teals, to fill in his kind of Siamese cat features, with a darker colour on his paws and maybe his nose. Keep the rest of him a white or a much lighter colour. I think we'll give him a peach nose, and the ribbon I was thinking to maybe do peach. I'm not entirely sure about his eyes yet. I might do them the very light teal. If we keep the medium and the dark to give him his markings, I might come in with the lighter teal for his eyes, depending how we're going at that time. And I'm hoping once that dries, we can come in with maybe a layer or 2 more and do a little bit of shading with the actual peach colour. because aside from that, we're going to have to bring in pencils for shading. And to be honest, today it's really, really hot, so it's a little bit too hot to be messing around with bringing out pencils and pencil shading. I just want something nice and fun and quick and easy today. So we're mainly going for those 4 different markers and seeing what we can make happen with this kitty cat. And feel free to colour along, anyone. If anyone is wanting to use the same kind of colours, the same kind of idea. We are going to be trying to make this guy into a little kind of a fairy cat. I do have an idea that might work for that, so I'm hoping I can pull that off. But there we go with our areas of peach there. Okay, and for his markings, I was thinking of sticking to the 2 darker colours, which again are G324 Aqua Blue, that's kind of our mid-tone, and G500 Peacock Blue for the darker colours. So let's see what we can have happen with his ears here. I'm no expert on Siamese cats, so yeah, please forgive me if I am getting these markings completely wrong. But from what I remember, their ears and maybe their nose, the kind of markings on their muzzle, up and around their eyes, and then their paws are the darker colour, and the rest of their fur is usually kind of a creamy, sort of a very light tan colour in real life. So with this mid-tone, we're going to fill in his ears. And coming down to the bottom where his ear is blending into the lighter colour of his fur, I'm trying to give some little kind of fur sort of strokes going on there to show his ear colour is blending into that lighter colour there. Sort of something like that. I'm going to do the same with this ear here. Something like that for his ears, I think. And because we already have these markings around his eyes, I'm going to work with that and give him the darker eye tone. Again, blending out into those kind of fur sort of strokes where the line art turns into fur at the corners of his eyes there. Anywhere the line art breaks off. There we go, something like that. And if I am remembering right, Siamese cats do have the dark area around their mouth and their kind of muzzle area here. So we're going to go ahead and fill those in. And his paws, I think his paws will be the darker colour for the fur. We'll bring it up to his nose here, I think. He will be a little fairy cat anyway, so it doesn't really matter if his markings don't really match real life. Kind of Siamese or Burmese cats, the fluffier ones, are they, if I remember right? But it doesn't matter if it doesn't match. Again, try and bring in a few little fur strokes. I do want him to look like a little fluffy cat. There we go. That's looking something like I imagined. So I'm going to go ahead and fill out his little feet here. He's going to be having the darker paws as well. I'm just going to quickly fill in his pupils here with a black Sharpie. I'm not counting that as cheating because, yeah, pupils are black. There's not really any getting around that. There we go. Okay, I'm going to try coming in with my darkest tone now, maybe starting on the ears where we did start with the shading, so the marker might be a little bit drier here. I'm going to try coming in with a little bit of fur texture. Not entirely sure which way this fur is supposed to be going. It seems to be going every which way. He's a very fluffy cat, this one. But I'm keeping the shade on these kind of tufts of fur to the outside, maybe. There we go, something along those lines, I think. Yeah, that's looking pretty cute. I think maybe that peach inside of his ears might have dried a little bit, so I might go in with another layer or 2 of the peach colour to see if we can get a little bit of shading going on. Hopefully we can, and if we do, maybe it might show up on the screen. My camera isn't that great, especially with kind of yellow or orange colours. I'm hoping at least we might show a little bit of shadow inside there without bringing in any other colours, hopefully. And then go across and do the same thing on his other ear, trying to make it look like we do have some fur going on. And I'm using the brush tip of the marker to try and give that the kind of indication of the fur. And this fur does seem to be a little bit messy, so there's no need to worry about my kind of pen marks going slightly the wrong way or anything, because he is a little bit of a scruffy cat anyways. There we go, that ear seems to have gone slightly darker, so we'll make our light coming from the right side of the page in case that influences anything. Okay, so we've got the fur going on his ears. Let's bring this darker colour into his eyes. Fur around his eyes, maybe. To be honest, I haven't really coloured much of Hanna Karlzon's animal fur. Whenever I colour any Hanna Karlzon, I usually try and pick the people, because people are my comfort zone. I do love colouring my people. So animal fur, not something I'm amazingly practiced with, but we're going to try and make it look as if this cat is a little bit fluffy by adding in the strokes of fur there. So that's looking, yeah, that's looking good. Compared to the other side, we can see the difference it does make bringing in the second shade there, which is actually the darkest shade there. His eyes, maybe we can do with the lightest colour. I'm not sure how well we'll be able to make those stand out. Again, we might have to try coming in, once that's actually dry, coming in with a couple of layers, I think, and then giving some white highlights with the white gel pen. Okay, let's give him some fur around this eye. I'm trying to follow any fur lines that Hanna Karlzon has actually put in there around the edges of those really fluffy bits. A few little strokes coming into the highlights there, trying to keep it the same as if I was colouring hair. His fur is basically very short hair, right? We'll keep things working like that, we should be fine. Now moving on to his sort of muzzle area here, we would have a shadow underneath here, I think. Okay, let's try bringing in a few fur sort of indications here. Okay, not bad. We'll move on to his little muzzle here. I'm going to try and leave my usual highlights around the bottom, as I do around a jawline whenever I'm doing my people. I try and leave a little bit of a highlight around the edges of the darkest areas for that reflected light. We do have some fur lines coming up his nose here, so let's work with those as well. He's looking really cute. So we'll come in with the mid-tone blue again, see if we can get a little bit of shading going on with another layer of the mid-tone blue. Maybe that will blend in these fur strokes a little bit. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, how visible we actually want those to be, but we can try and add a little bit more texture there with a second layer of colour. Okay, yep, I'm liking that. So let's move on to his feet now. We'll keep our light coming from the right like we suggested earlier. And yeah, try and add a bit more of that fur texture on his little paws there. I'm not sure at the moment what to do about this bell here. We might actually have to come in with some pencils to make that work, or see what we can do, making a metallic sort of look with these markers. I'm not entirely sure. So we have the darker blue and the mid-tone blue, making a little bit of fur texture. I do love the way these colours work together, the teal and the sort of peach. Kind of like blue and orange. It's a complementary scheme, so I think it's working really well. So let's see if we can bring in any shading to his eyes. Where are we? Just for bringing in a second layer of that really light blue that we're using. We are going to have the light going from the right, as we've decided, so we'll try and darken the left side of his eyes there. That's really cool. And we were shading with a second layer of this peach colour as well. So we'll come and shade all the bits that we've coloured with the peach. Chocolate pink was it called? This is giving a very slightly darker shade of this peach colour. Hopefully it is showing on the camera. I'll try and play with the colours if it's not showing, but yeah, hopefully that is showing a little bit for you guys there. Okay, for the bell, I have to use these colours as we are sticking to the colour palette. So let's try with the darkest colour there. I'll try and make it look a little bit metallic. Try not to smudge it into the peach colour too much. That is the darkest colour with the peacock blue there. Then the aqua blue with the fine part of the marker. I think that's working okay, to be honest. If we're going to come in with the very light blue to shade around there and do the white of his fur with the pale aqua mint, this is the plan, and to maybe go around the outside edges here with the white gel pen to try and show that his fur is white, which is part of the colour scheme. We do have the white along with all these different coloured teal blues here and the peach. So we're coming in with the pale aqua blue. I'm not sure if I was on camera there. So we're coming in with the pale aqua blue and adding in a little bit of shading with that for the white fur. Again, trying to bring in a few little indications of that kind of fur texture by doing the very short strokes with the pen. We're going to have shadow underneath his bow there. Behind his little paw. Going to have more shade on this side if we do have a light coming from the right. We're going to have a shadow under his little muzzle here. On the edge of his face. I'm going to try and make sure there is colour around the edges of his face here, because I'm going to try and come around the line art that we have going on with the white gel pen in these white areas of the actual cat. So wherever the fur's been drawn in with little bits of line art there, around the edges of the fur of his face here, I'm going to come with this light blue, so that when I come in with the white, that does show up and we can actually see the white fur of the cat happening, hopefully with a bit of luck. Let's give him some fur texture going up his nose. We'll blend his ears into the white fur of his face. I'm wondering if we can bring in the maybe the mid-tone of the green there to shade a little bit of this bow. I'm not sure. Okay, that doesn't work too badly. Doesn't work too badly at all. I might leave it on the bow though, I'm thinking. I've gone around the inside edge of the frame here with this kind of peach colour metallic marker. That's from a set of the 6 metallic watercolour markers there from B&M here in the UK. It's not working particularly well, so I've just gone around the inside edge of the frame there to maybe add a little touch of a metallic to our picture. For the outside edge of the frame here, I've come in with the lightest shade of the teal, which is called Pale Aqua Blue, I think. yeah, pale aqua mint. I've used that around the outside edge of the frame. I have a kind of vague idea to again come in with the white gel pen and sort of make that look like lace. If I can find something to actually go on the outside edge here, kind of behind this bit that I'm hoping to be lace, give a darker colour around the outside, maybe with chalk pastel or something, and then make that edge look like lace. But for the inside of the frame here, I'm coming in with the darkest shade of marker that we've got, which is the G500 Peacock Blue. I'm just going to fill in all this area in the back here, and that is kind of the same colour that we've used for the shade on his ears, but I'm thinking maybe I can shade a little bit with the colour pencil behind his ears just to make those stand out a little bit more, keep this background fairly dark so our white cat can maybe stand out in the middle there. I'm adding a little bit of dotting to this background as well. I'm not sure it will show up super well as it is just with the same marker with that darkest tone of teal that we were using. I laid down 2 layers actually in the background, and now I'm going over with a little bit of dotting to add a bit of texture. And then I will come in with a colour pencil and just colour around where his fur and where his ears come in. And I haven't forgot about making him into a fairy cat. I still have my idea for that, but I think that will be added once all this has been done, once the whole picture has been finished. We will come in and give him his wings with a little bit of paper collage. This is Cobalt Turquoise, that's from the Prismacolors. And I'm just adding a little bit of darker shading behind the cat's ears there. This colour isn't super much different to the colour of the marker, but I think it's making it different enough that the ears are standing out a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit around the edges of his fur as well. Let's see how well that works, bringing in the white outlines to the fur here, like we planned. I'm guessing the colour will soak through into the white gel pen, but yeah, I'm not too fussed about that. It's not going to be too much of a tragedy. Yeah, I think that's going to work pretty well, adding in the white outlines there. We'll put in the usual white outlines for the eyes as well. A big highlight, a little highlight, and the shine lines. Oh, he's super cute. I'm loving him. Yeah, I think that's working. So I'll carry on and put in all the white outlining. I'm going to leave the areas that are darker and just bring in the white outlines around the areas of the cat that are white, and any line art that there is drawn there, I'm going to go over that and around the outsides just to make all that line art be white. And I'm planning on doing the same with this outside edge of the frame. But first we need to figure out how we're going to make that show up from the white of the page. So I'll catch up with you once we've finished all this cat fur and maybe figured out how to make that lace stand out from the page. I've added in all the white fur there now. I've gone around all the line art around the outside of our little cat. Added in a few other highlights as well, especially on his muzzle there, on the bow, and a few around the edges of the frame. And I've decided that I don't really want to bring in any water medium into this picture because I'm not quite sure how this paper would take it. This is the new Colouring Heaven paper, which doesn't take it particularly well. So I found my chalk pastels here. Yeah, we have a few shades of teal in there. So I'm hoping if I pick one of these darker shades of teal, like that one maybe, I can put in a little smudging of colour around the outside of that frame and maybe make that look like it is lace with the white gel pen. I will have to fix the pastel probably because the gel pen doesn't really like working on top of the chalk pastel unless it is fixed. But yeah, I think I'll go for this teal here. And just pop in a little bit of colour around the outside of this kind of frame area. It is slightly a greener shade of teal. This is more the shade of teal that is actually in the colour palette, but I'm hoping it's close enough to maybe that mid-tone that we can actually get away with using that. See if we can smudge that out with a little bit of tissue. We don't want to fill the whole page, we just want the suggestion of a background there, so I can bring in the white gel pen and make this outside look like lace. I've given this area around the outside now a little spray with fixative, and I've popped in some circles of white Prismacolor pencil here because we're going to be adding some sparkles into the background for a little fairy kitty cat here. Yep, kind of white gel pen sparkles. There we go, just by adding in the white gel pen into the middle of a circle, we make some little sparkles there. Adding some little dots as well that are not actually inside the circles, just to be some yeah, little specks of fairy magic floating around there. And we might be able to go over this line art here now and turn this into a little bit of a lace frame by going over the edges of the line art and adding in a few white gel pen dots into the kind of semicircles there to make a kind of a doily maybe effect around the outside of our frame. Okay, we're pretty much done there with the colouring on the page, but I do want to be giving this little guy some wings because I want him to be a fairy cat, but I also want to keep this page in the style of Hanna Karlzon. I don't really want to be bringing in any collage wings that look a bit too realistic, so what I thought I could do was bring Imagine What Hanna Karlzon book, which is Spirit Animals, and trace out some wings from in here to give to our little cat. That would be keeping in with the Hanna Karlzon style while still making him into more of a fantasy fairy cat, which is what I am aiming for today. And these will be kind of a bird style wings rather than fairy butterfly wings, but I think it will still fit with my theme pretty well. And the page from in here I'm thinking of tracing from is this one here. I can get those both on camera, I'm not sure, we're quite far zoomed in here, but these hummingbirds have two different styles of wings here. And I'm thinking if I could trace one of these wings and maybe reverse it so we have a pair of matching wings, trace those out onto some separate paper, colour those in with the same kind of colours and then stick those on to our little cat there. I think we'll be able to get something kind of fairy, sort of ethereal looking. So I'm going to go ahead and try and trace these out. I've done one wing there. I've traced that out, coloured it in and kind of slotted it behind our little kitty cat. I'm not sure entirely my choice of colours is exactly working, but yeah, that's what I'm going with for his wings. And how I did that, we'll show you on the second one here. First of all, I have traced off the wing there from the hummingbird in the Hanna Karlzon book. And a few bits here at the beginning, I've actually gone around and given that a little bit of a black fine liner line art just with the Unipin fine liner. The rest of it I'll be giving the white outlines to. I have actually put black outlines around this bar here, so I'll just fill that in. But the rest of it I'll be giving the white outlines to before cutting it out and slotting it behind our little kitty cat there. So I just went ahead and coloured that with markers. I'll just pop a little bit of scrap paper behind there so we're not getting any marks all over my drawing board. And with the lightest colour, which is the pale aqua mint, I was filling out a little bit of shadow on these long feathers here. And this is looking a little bit darker than we actually have in our colouring page, but it is the same marker. This is just normal printer paper because you could see through it to see the lines that we were going for on the picture underneath. Made it easier to trace out without using the tracing paper and transferring. So that is all the lighter shade of the turquoise or teal. These bits here I went in with the mid-tone. And yeah, it makes things a little bit easier doing it this way, tracing the picture, the wings from the picture in the book rather than having to draw in wings yourself. It just cuts down on the time, does make things a lot easier. So I'm just shading these darker areas with the the markers, the mid-tone and the darker, leaving the light mainly for the outside feathers there. And we can tidy up any marker bleeding there with the actual white gel pen, because we're going to come in and go over the line art for these feathers here, which is why I've kept the pencil fairly light and actually gone over it a little bit with the eraser to make that pencil as light as I could while still seeing where the feathers actually went, so I could come in with the white gel pen and draw them in. A little bit of feather texture on these feathers here with the white gel pen, just putting in a few kind of dash lines to give a sort of idea that these are feathery, like angel or fairy wings. And I think for this this little bit here, I did put in a row of little white dots just for a little bit of extra kind of fanciness, I suppose. Yeah, there's our wings. I'm going to cut that one out now just with the little scissors. Here's our wing all cut out now. And to fix that onto our little kitty here, and to make it look as if it is part of him, rather than just being stuck over the top, all we need to do is cut out a kind of slit here, or a slot behind him, so that we can bring that wing in and pop it in behind him there. So I've brought the cutting board in, the small cutting board, and I'm just going to cut around the outline of his fur here as best as I can. When we do have our slit cut there, we can see we do have all his fur actually cut out there. So we do have a gap there that we can actually slide this little wing underneath there to make it look as if it is kind of coming behind his fur part of his body. We can slip that in like that. And once you're happy where his wing actually is, we can tab that down with the glue stick. It's quite kind of tricky to get this stuck down, as we do have all this kind of fiddly fur going on. But I think if we lift this up and maybe tap underneath with the glue stick a little bit, just to make sure there's glue on that fur, and then press it down over the top of our wing, we'll be getting somewhere near how we're wanting that to look. That's a little bit fiddly, a little bit tricky, but we can get that stuck down. I'm not sure if that's the exact technique that should be used, but it's what I did on the other side, and it seems to have worked there. And then on the back, we can go in and do the same kind of thing. Tab with the glue stick, make sure that's stuck down on the back of the page, just to make sure nothing gets ripped or torn there. You can go over there with masking tape if you have actually finished the painting or the colouring on this side of the page. There will be a little bit of tidying up possibly where we cut out this fur, so I can just go over those outlines again with the white gel pen for that white fur. Something like that there. And we have lost a little bit of his whiskers there, so we'll come in with the fine liner, the Unipin fine liner, same one that we used to draw the line art onto our wings, and just add in that line art for his whiskers coming over the top of everything there. And I have today been out on my travels and I found these stickers here actually in the pound shop, and there are some nice peach colour roses here, maybe a little bit more of a yellowy peach, but I think those might fit in really well with our little cat, so I might stick some of those little stickers on. A little white rose there as well. I think that's looking super cute, so I'm going to see if I've got any butterflies that will match with that colour scheme, because I think that would just be the perfect finishing touch if I add in a few little butterflies there. I found a couple of butterflies. We found one here that's more of a peachy, leaning towards the orange, but more of a peachy orange colour there that I think I may be able to get away with. And we found this one that's more on the green side of teal, but again, I'm thinking maybe we might be able to get away with that. So I'm going to add maybe a few sparkles around the outside here, around the outside of our frame. I'm going to be calling him there because colouring time is actually at an end. Everyone's on their way back home now, so the house won't be so quiet anymore. So I'll zoom us out and we'll see the whole picture, and it's been super fun colouring this little guy today. There we are with our little fairy kitty cat, and I'm really happy with how he has turned out. Maybe I've gone a little tiny bit cheaty, leaning away from that colour palette a little bit too much with the orangey peach and the greenish teal, but I think it all fits together really well. It does look like a little harmonious colour palette we do have going on there. So even if I have strayed a little bit from that hashtag, the hashtag was the inspiration for this picture. So yeah, I think that's sticking to my theme pretty well there. And if nothing else, it is the first picture I have coloured in this magazine, so he will count towards Colour Your Haul. Feel free to colour along if you do have the same markers. Those were the Ohuhu markers I used there. I think I did mention the colours that I did pick out for the colour scheme. Of course, any embellishments are completely optional. Stickers and roses there, the wings completely optional. But it is a fun thing to try to trace out different elements to be able to add them to your picture instead of collaging from picture books or things like that. You can actually trace elements from colouring books, other colouring books you do have. And if they're colouring books that you're not particularly bothered about ruining, if they're really old, really cheap, or you're not particularly keen on them, you can cut out from other colouring books and use those elements in your own picture as little bits of collage. So yeah, a super fun one today, and hopefully you all enjoyed following along while I did colour in this little kitty cat today. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Take care everyone, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye!